Amid the vast expanse of the universe, where civilizations endlessly reach for the stars, secrets and threats lie hidden, surpassing the imagination of any species. A distress signal echoed from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, bearing a dire warning of an unprecedented menace, the Zarn Plague, a mysterious virus capable of wiping out all life in an instant. At the heart of the crisis, a strange anomaly shook every established theory. A human ship, starbound Horizon, emerged from an infected zone with its crew still alive. Not only did they survive, but they showed only mild symptoms: coughing, fever, and fatigue, a stark contrast to the total annihilation the virus had inflicted upon other planets. What caused this remarkable difference? Could humanity's peculiar immune system truly be the key to confronting this menace, or was it merely a fortunate anomaly? And in the depths of despair, could two species, long divided by mistrust and distance, set aside their differences to face the greatest challenge the universe had ever seen together? As the Zarn Plague spread its shadow across the galaxy, unresolved mysteries began to unfold, paving the way for a story not just about survival, but about a journey to uncover the essence of differences and the true value of unity. The skies of the Vega star system, where the colony of Vega Prime once stood as a symbol of prosperity, were now shrouded in ashes. The patrol fleet of the Kyron Preservation Armada drifted silently through the ruins of the planet, the starlight glinting off the cold metallic hulls of their warships. The command station had received the first signal from Vega Prime not long ago, a transmission filled with desperation and panic. Every living creature on the planet had vanished within days, and the cause was soon identified: a never-before-seen virus, the Zarn Plague, was annihilating all life it encountered. The virus didn't just kill, it turned every body into a host, replicating itself at an astonishing rate. The final images transmitted from the planet's surface revealed once thriving neighborhoods reduced to desolation, their atmosphere thick with a biological haze confirmed by Kyron scientists to be the primary vector of infection. The situation grew even more urgent when the Kyron fleet detected another signal in the vicinity, this time from the starbound Horizon, a human-owned spacecraft that was transmitting irregular data. Initial readings indicated that the ship's crew had also been exposed to the Zarn Plague. But what they found was astonishing: none of the crew had died. Instead, they exhibited only mild symptoms: coughing, fever, and fatigue, a stark contrast to the swift extinction faced by every other species exposed to the virus. Grand Overseer Jorux, the leader of the Kyron fleet, called an emergency meeting aboard his flagship. In the vast conference chamber, holographic displays projected images from Vega Prime and the starbound Horizon as high-ranking officers and biomedical experts from the Kyron deliberated, their anxiety evident. The Zarn Plague has demonstrated its lethality. But humans, why don't they die? One scientist asked, their voice tinged with frustration. We don't understand how their immune systems work. Initial data suggests a high degree of instability in their immune responses. It could either be a vulnerability or an adaptation we have yet to comprehend. Jorux stared intently at the data, the light from the holograms reflecting off his sharp, golden eyes. He disliked surprises, especially those stemming from a species the Kyrons had long regarded as fragile and vulnerable. We need answers, and we need them immediately, Jorux commanded. Investigate the starbound Horizon. Everything about humans, their immune systems, and how they've survived the Zarn Plague, I want it all. If their immunity holds the key, it could be the only weapon we have to stop the virus's spread. A reconnaissance fleet was quickly dispatched to intercept the starbound Horizon. As the first Kyron warships approached, the crew aboard the human vessel reacted with suspicion and fear. It had been years since the last direct interaction between humans and Kyrons. While there had been no formal conflict, a long history of rivalry meant that collaboration was often fraught with difficulty. Data transmitted from the starbound horizon painted a strikingly different picture. The crew was functioning normally, despite clear signs of infection. No one had died, and no one had become a host for the virus. Some crew members had even fully recovered after just a few days of rest. This revelation shocked the Kyron research team and sparked heated debates within their ranks. "This isn't just a biological anomaly," a Kyron scientist exclaimed while analyzing the latest data. "Human immune systems clearly function in an unusual manner. But why would that irregularity make them resistant to something no other species has survived?" Grand Overseer Jorix didn't have time to wait for a complete answer. He ordered a small team of Kyron scientists to board the starbound horizon and begin a mission he knew could alter the future of both species. But in his mind, the virus was not the only threat. The unpredictability and mystery surrounding humans were puzzles he felt compelled to solve as quickly as possible. As the heavily armored Kyron vessels approached the human spacecraft, a tense energy filled the void of space. The lights of the ships shimmered like isolated stars in the vast emptiness. Inside the starbound horizon, the human crew watched from their observation windows, wondering if this was the beginning of another standoff or the start of an unprecedented alliance. Aboard the flagship of the Kyron fleet, cold light from display screens illuminated streams of data about the Zarn Plague. Kyron scientists, their ash-gray skin and glowing eyes reflecting the screens, engaged in relentless debates. Initial results from samples collected aboard the starbound horizon provided no plausible explanation. The Zarn Plague had been designed a revelation that silenced the command room. It was not a natural organism. It had been created, but its true purpose remained shrouded in mystery. Data collected from the human crew revealed a perplexing paradox. Their immune systems were unremarkable when compared to other species in the galaxy. Theoretically, humans should have succumbed to the Zarn Plague within hours of infection. Yet, in reality, the virus could not devastate them as it had other species. Instead, the human immune system activated a complex, nonlinear, and seemingly chaotic chain of reactions. But it was this very chaos that saved them. The Kyron research team, led by Chief Scientist Lyrak, was granted access to the starbound horizon. Lyrak, a genius in microbiology, was renowned for his brilliance but also for his rigid demeanor, which often made his colleagues uneasy. Upon stepping aboard the human vessel, Lyrak immediately sensed the differences between the two species. The interior of the starbound horizon buzzed with live conversations, laughter, the hum of machinery. In contrast, Kyron ships were always silent, their crews working with near absolute focus. "Welcome aboard the starbound horizon," Captain Rena Carter greeted them with a cautious but friendly smile. "We understand you're here to study our peculiar resistance to the Zarn Plague." Lyrak didn't respond immediately. His glowing eyes scrutinized Rena, analyzing every expression on her face. Humans had always been an enigma to the Kyron, not just biologically but psychologically. "We require blood samples, genetic data, and the medical histories of your entire crew," Lyrak said, his voice devoid of emotion. "We'll provide all the information you need," Rena replied. "But in return, we need to know what you've discovered about this virus. If it was created as we suspect, this is no longer a medical issue but a military threat." Lyrak paused. It was the first time anyone outside the Kyron had raised this possibility. Clearly, humans were not only surviving the virus but also demonstrating sharp deductive reasoning. In a temporary laboratory set up aboard the starbound horizon, Lyrak's team began their research. They discovered that the human immune system defied all known rules of biology. While the Kyron immune system and those of most other species responded to pathogens in a logical, linear manner, the human immune system functioned like a vast network with millions of variables. It might overreact to mild pathogens but somehow manage to control deadly threats like the Zarn Plague with precision. One particularly astonishing discovery left the team stunned. Human immune cells appeared to remember how to combat the Zarn Plague, even though it was a completely novel virus. This suggested that humans might have encountered a different variant of the virus in the past, or perhaps their immune systems had evolved to anticipate threats that had never existed. "This is absurd," one Kyron scientist exclaimed. "This instability should have killed them off millennia ago. How has this species survived for thousands of years?" "It's not instability," Lyric countered, his glowing eyes alight with rare excitement. "It's adaptation, a form of adaptation that defies every principle we know. Humans survive because of their own chaos." While the Kyron scientists delved into their research, the relationship between the two species began to shift. Lyric, who had always regarded humans as weak and inferior, found himself developing a grudging respect for them. Rena, though initially wary, couldn't help but admire the Kyrons' discipline and analytical prowess. One night, as they both gazed out of the command deck windows, their paths crossed. "What do you think of us, Lyric?" Rena asked, her tone light but tinged with curiosity. "You are a paradox," Lyric replied after a moment of silence. "Fragile yet resilient. Illogical yet effective. If there's anything that unsettles me, it's that I cannot explain you through pure science." Rena chuckled softly. "Maybe we don't always need to be explained. We just need to exist." Lyric didn't respond, but her words lingered in his mind throughout the night. Perhaps humanity's existence was a testament to something the Kyrons had overlooked, the ability to adapt and overcome adversity through the very unpredictability they had long dismissed. In a temporary research chamber set up aboard the starbound Horizon, the space was bathed in a faint blue glow from medical devices and holographic displays. Kyron scientists, tall and angular in appearance, stood in small clusters, engaged in endless discussions. In contrast, the human scientists were more open, chatting and occasionally debating energetically. It was the first time in history that the two species collaborated on such a scale, and no one knew whether this alliance would endure or end in tragedy. Lyric, the Kyron chief scientist, bent over a sample of human crew blood, engrossed in analysis. The data he was gathering was baffling. The human immune system didn't just respond in one way but in hundreds of ways, depending on the individual. This anomaly left him astonished. "Unstable yet effective," Lyric murmured, his gaze fixed on the screen. "It's this very chaos that's keeping them alive." Captain Rena Carter entered the room, her expression attentive. "Is there anything else we can do to help?" she asked calmly. Lyric didn't look up and replied in a dry tone, "Just don't disrupt our research environment." Rena smiled, unoffended. "We're used to chaos. Let me know if you need anything." As Rena left, Lyric paused for a moment. Humans were indeed different. They were both stubborn and adaptable, traits that Kyron leaders had always underestimated. Lyric began to realize that these seemingly disadvantageous traits were the very reason humanity had survived. Meanwhile, Dr. Mikhail Novak, the head of the human research team, was presenting a new discovery to the Kyron team. "We believe the Zarn Plague targets primary immune cells, breaking down the body's defenses before it has time to react," Novak explained clearly. "But what we've found remarkable is how the human immune system can trick the virus, preventing it from fully assimilating." "Trick?" a Kyron scientist frowned. "The immune system isn't a sentient entity. How can it trick anything? Novak chuckled softly. It's what we call this phenomenon. The human immune system seems to generate a multitude of non-uniform responses, making it impossible for the virus to adapt or exploit. Each individual reacts differently, creating a highly unpredictable defense network. Lyric listened intently, his sharp gaze focused. A strategy based on chaos, he remarked. Fascinating, but unsustainable. How long can your species survive before the virus evolves? Long enough to find a solution, Novak replied without hesitation. The collaboration between the two species deepened. Experiments on blood, cells, and tissues were conducted non-stop, with both sides sharing previously classified data. A breakthrough came when the Kyron team discovered a unique protein in human blood, a substance they called the molecular shield. This protein didn't destroy the virus but slowed its replication, giving the immune system enough time to mount a response. This is something we've never seen before, a Kyron scientist exclaimed, their eyes gleaming with excitement. It's not just defense, it's a delay tactic, a remarkably clever strategy. Lyric pondered. Perhaps this is the key. If we can replicate or amplify the molecular shield, we could develop a vaccine or treatment. Though the experiments brought hope, tensions between the two sides didn't entirely dissipate. One night, in the control room, Novak and Lyric had a heated argument about whether human subjects should be used for testing. These are my crew members' lives. Novak snapped, slamming his hand on the table. We're not your test subjects. And we cannot risk the survival of our entire species for the sake of your emotions, Lyric retorted coldly. We need answers, and sometimes the price is sacrifice. The argument ended only when Rena stepped in, her voice calm yet firm. No one here will be sacrificed, whether human or Kyron. We will find another way. Lyric fell silent, but there was an unspoken respect in his eyes. Eventually, a groundbreaking experiment was conducted. Both teams decided to combine their knowledge and technology to create a prototype vaccine based on the molecular shield. The initial trials succeeded in a simulated model, but it wasn't enough. They needed real-world confirmation. In a medical bay, a member of the human crew volunteered to receive the vaccine. Both teams gathered around, monitoring vital signs displayed on the screens. Time passed excruciatingly slowly, but finally, the indicators showed that the Zarn Plague could not infect the individual. We did it, Novak exhaled in relief. This is only the beginning, Lyric said, though even he couldn't hide his sense of relief. This reckless encounter marked a turning point. Two species, once divided by differences and suspicion, now shared a common goal, to defeat the Zarn Plague. In that moment, a glimmer of hope emerged in the vast darkness of the galaxy. In the quiet space of the main laboratory aboard the starbound Horizon, all eyes were glued to a large screen displaying three-dimensional protein sequences rotating slowly. It was the first visual of a synthetic protein created based on the unique immune characteristics of humans, a product of weeks of collaboration between the Kyron and human research teams. This was not merely a scientific achievement, it was the sole beacon of hope against the looming existential threat of the Zarn Plague. Dr. Mikhail Novak stood beside Lyric, his eyes shining with satisfaction but shadowed by exhaustion. We've just created something that could save billions of lives, Novak said, his voice hoarse from endless hours of work. Lyric didn't respond, only giving a slight nod. The light from the screen reflected off his stern features, but deep within the Kyron scientist's eyes lay an emotion Novak had never seen before: respect. The Kyron, proud of their precision and order, were for the first time forced to acknowledge the value of humanity's so-called chaos. The synthesis of the protein had been anything but simple. Initially, the Kyron team attempted to apply their biological principles to recreate the molecular shield, but every effort failed. The Kyron immune system, designed for efficiency and precision, was incompatible with the complex diversity of human-derived proteins. Early prototypes even triggered adverse reactions, causing Kyron cells to self-destruct within minutes. You can't apply your methods to something inherently imperfect, Novak had argued during one heated debate with the Kyron scientists. What you see as instability is actually the adaptability we've evolved over millions of years. Lyrak, initially dismissive, eventually conceded. The research team decided on a new approach, using Kyron technology to simulate a human biological environment. Novak coined it organized chaotic biology. Each protein strand was analyzed, recreated, and tested. Thousands of failed iterations left the team on the brink of exhaustion, but finally, they produced a stable version, a hybrid protein that combined human traits with compatibility for the Kyron immune system. When the initial tests succeeded on artificial Kyron tissues, the atmosphere in the lab turned electric. Even the usually stoic Kyron scientists couldn't hide their excitement. A breakthrough had been made, and hope was rekindled. However, real-world testing was a different story. Introducing the synthetic protein into a living organism always came with risks. Novak, well acquainted with the uncertainties of research, felt apprehensive. If this fails, it won't just cost one life, it will jeopardize the future of both our species, he confided to Colonel Rena Carter in a private meeting. But if we don't try, everything ends, Rena replied, her gaze steady. She understood Novak's concerns, but she also knew that hesitation was their greatest enemy. The first volunteer for testing was a Kyron warrior named Zarak. Known for his bravery and leadership, Zarak was one of the most respected officers in the Kyron fleet. I am not afraid to die, Zarak said firmly when Lyrak voiced his concerns. If this can save our planet, I am willing to make the sacrifice. The process of injecting the protein into Zarak's body took place in a specially designed isolation chamber. Dozens of eyes watched intently through monitoring screens. Zarak's body reacted immediately, with his temperature spiking and heart rate exceeding safe limits. But after hours of intense monitoring, his vital signs began to stabilize. Against all odds, his body accepted the hybrid protein, and his immune system activated with unprecedented strength. We did it, Novak breathed in relief, quickly adding a caution, this is only the first step. We need extensive testing before widespread use. When Zarak emerged from the isolation chamber, he was greeted with applause from both species. This was not just a triumph of science, it was a victory for collaboration and trust. In the following days, the research team continued refining the protein formula, expanding trials to include more Kyron volunteers. Each success reinforced the belief that they could finally bring the Zarn Plague to an end. Meanwhile, Kyron leaders began re-evaluating their perceptions of humanity. Their instability is not a weakness, it's a unique strength, admitted Grand Overseer Jorix during a strategic council meeting. There is much we can learn from them. For humanity, this was a chance to prove they were more than fragile beings in a vast galaxy. In their darkest hour, they had risen to demonstrate that life doesn't need to be perfect to survive. Along this journey, both species learned a profound truth: sometimes, the greatest hope lies in the very chaos that seemed insurmountable. The victory over the Zarn Plague was not only a scientific milestone but also the dawn of a new chapter in the relationship between two species once divided by cultural, ideological, and biological differences. On planets ravaged by the pandemic, jubilant cheers erupted as the newly developed vaccine was distributed, saving millions of Kyron lives? Yet, this battle was more than just a fight against a virus, it was a journey toward a deeper understanding between two civilizations. In the Grand Hall of Kairos Prime, Grand Overseer Jorix and Colonel Rena Carter stood side by side before thousands of delegates from both species. A solemn atmosphere enveloped the gathering as every eye focused on them. This was not merely a ceremony marking the end of the plague but the beginning of an unprecedented alliance in galactic history. Jorix's voice resonated through the hall, steady and profound. We once prided ourselves on our perfection, believing it to be the ultimate strength. But the Zarn Plague has shown us that no species, no matter how strong, can endure alone in a universe filled with dangers. Humanity, with their imperfections we once scorned, has proven that imperfection itself can be a great strength. Colonel Carter continued, her gaze unwavering. Our collaboration has not only saved lives but also taught us that differences are not barriers, they are opportunities to complement one another. When faced with the greatest challenge, we learn to unite, to overcome fear and prejudice. That is the greatest lesson of all. Thunderous applause erupted, not just from the Kyron but also from the human delegation. A new relationship was forming, built not on rivalry but on mutual respect and shared growth. On Kyron planets, monuments were erected to honor those who had fallen during the pandemic, both Kyron and human. One statue stood out, a Kyron warrior and a human scientist standing together, raising a vial of vaccine, a symbol of collaboration. In laboratories, joint research projects were launched. The Kyron, with their logical minds and advanced technology, provided analytical tools beyond human imagination. In turn, human scientists brought creativity and the ability to approach problems from unconventional angles. One of the first projects aimed to develop artificial immune systems, blending Kyron technology with human biology to address future biological threats. Not everything was smooth sailing, though. Early collaborations faced numerous challenges. Some Kyron remained uneasy about humanity's unpredictable and impulsive nature. Conversely, many in the human alliance were wary, unable to fully trust the intentions of the Kyron, known for their strict control and cold demeanor. Over time, however, unity proved capable of overcoming any obstacle. Conferences and cultural exchanges were organized across planets of both species. Humans began learning from the Kyron's strategic thinking and organizational skills, while the Kyron, for the first time, experienced art, music, and humanity's emotionally charged stories. A particularly symbolic moment occurred when Lyrak, the Kyron scientist who led the research team aboard the starbound Horizon, stepped onto a stage and recited a human poem for the first time, a poem about hope and life amidst darkness. The younger generations of both species, growing up in this era, seemed to be the greatest beneficiaries of the alliance. In intergalactic academies, the first joint classes with both humans and Kyron were established. They learned together, no longer viewing each other through the lens of difference but as companions on a shared journey. However, the greatest lesson left by the fight against the Zarn Plague was not merely about scientific collaboration. It was the realization that no species is perfect. Weaknesses, flaws, and even instabilities can become strengths when understood and harnessed correctly. This understanding transformed how humanity viewed themselves and how the Kyron perceived the vast galaxy around them. The stars in the sky were no longer symbols of division but reminders of an unchanging truth: in a universe full of peril, unity is the key to survival. And from this battle, a new alliance was born, not just between humans and Kyron, but among all species that chose to place their trust in one another. The Zarn Plague was finally vanquished, but its legacy remained etched into every planet it had touched. Statues, new chronicles, and even the scars borne by individuals stood as reminders of a dark era that two civilizations had braved together. Humans and the Kyron, from two worlds that once seemed irreconcilable, had found a profound commonality, the acknowledgement that no species could endure alone in this vast universe. Scientific collaborations continued. Kyron and human children learned side by side in interstellar academies, and together, both species gazed toward distant stars, where new mysteries and dangers awaited. Yet, as the light of the new vaccine spread across the galaxy, one question lingered: how long would this newfound unity last? Beneath the surface of peace and cooperation lay remnants of disagreements, suspicions, and shadows of a past not fully extinguished. Still, one truth was undeniable: the story of the Zarn Plague was not merely a warning, but a lesson in courage, humility, and the ability to transcend limitations we impose on ourselves. And in a universe teeming with the unknown, this story was only the beginning.